G'day everyone, welcome back to another edition of Guvs HeroReview videos. We are continuing with our zombies saga, taking a look at the 5-star legendary yellow heroine, Ember, the Hellfire Zombie. So Ember is available for summons, as we saw briefly there from the ZombieOutbreak portal, which rolls around once every 12 weeks. It is on a monthly time slot, but it alternates with 2 other events, so we only see it once every 3 months. The zombie family and the portal and stuff, it is quite a complicated history. Originally, there were only 5 zombie heroes in the game. They were attainable by cashing in zombie badges, which you got as a reward from the 20 zombie wave spec op we still see today. However, in May 2021, during version 33, SGG did away with those those zombie badges and instead put in the 30-stage event and its associated portal that we see today. At the same time, they dropped in 14 new heroes, of which Ember was one of. So Ember's been in the game since May 2021. The portal itself, the odds are displayed there, so we have a 1.2% chance to get a legendary zombie hero, which is a little bit reduced to the portals that have got featured and unfeatured odds, so we do have an equal opportunity to get any of the legendary zombie heroes, but by the same token, there's no increased odds of getting a specific hero. So if we were to put that all into perspective and we were to do 100 summons in this portal, we would have a 70.1% probability of gaining any of the legendary zombie heroes, but we would have just a 10.3% probability of summoning a specific zombie hero that we might be chasing after. If we flip over to my roster and we scroll up to our Demolitions class heroes, we can have a look at Ember's artwork. So Ember's artwork, she is the Hellfire Zombie, so naturally she has got a flamethrower going on. A little bit of an interesting flamethrower. It's kind of got the flame, like the packs on her back, but it's also got like a little supplementary canister that's actually attached to the gun, as well as 2 additional canisters strapped to each of her ankles. So, I don't know, a little bit interesting. I would have thought that, I don't know, maybe it's like an emergency supply of nitrous oxide or something like that, or flamethrower juice, whatever it might happen to be. So anyway, that's her artwork. Feel free to pause it if you wish, but in any case, let's head back to the portal. And I will say as well, Ember has one of the coolest animations in this entire game. If you haven't seen it, I totally recommend finding someone that can share it with you. But Ember's animation is so dope. I love it. It is one of my favorite animations in the game. But anyway, that's something that's on the aside. So Ember herself, she is a member of the zombie family, which means that she has an innate 50% reduction to any turn-based status effects that would do damage to her. So these are things like burn, bleed, poison, anything like that. They're all going to do 50% less damage for her and any other zombie hero you might encounter. There is also a stat bonus for having multiple unique heroes in a battle, so specifically there is a plus 3, 6, 9 or 12% attack stat improvement for having 2, 3, 4 or 5 unique zombie heroes in the battle. Notably, they do have to be unique heroes. It can't be 2 copies of Ember, it's got to be 2 different heroes, such as Ember and Billy Bob, or Ember and Hatchet as 2 different examples. Her personal stats are 715 attack, 666 defense, and 1,379 HP. So there is a very marginal skew going from that defense stat towards the attack. It's nothing substantial. It's only probably about 20 points or so, but it is a stat swing going from defense towards attack. I will point out as well that her total power is reduced, so it just means that she has less base stats to distribute in total. So we compare Ember at 684 compared to Topaz, who's 742, so there is less stats to go around onto Ember's card. So yeah. Her charge speed is 37, which is slow. It's actually very slow speed, really, and requires 12 tiles to charge or 6 ghosted tiles. The speed break occurs at 43 speed, so you do need to give it a plus 5 speed improvement, which you can do using either of this the higher speed guns in the game. So you've got the Ragnarok Vantage, which is a 5-star gun and gives you plus 6 speed improvement. There's also the Triss Vector, which is a 4-star gun and gives you plus 7. So either of those weapons will give you this speed break down to 11 tiles to charge. A double break does need plus 13, so you got to get up to 50 speed, which isn't possible at this point in time. Even if there was a plus 9 speed gun in yellow, which there isn't, the 2% charge generation node is not enough to get that double speed break. So there's no real need or requirement to get the charge generation node on her class tree. On the topic of her class, she is a member of the Demolitions class, which grants her the chance to shell shock the enemy by removing buffs from the target whenever they deal damage. The removal of buffs will also trigger an increase in the damage dealt by 15% per each buff removed, as well as a flat increase of 50% damage from normal damage sources. So personally, I really do love the Demolitions perk. It is effectively a free opportunity for the dispelling of buffs, which is so clutch against a lot of the heroes you might encounter on defense. So you've got heroes like a Yumi or Hypernova and all that sort of thing. It can dispel their buffs and ramp up the damage that you're dealing to them as well. So typically I will give +1 to pretty well all of my Demolitions class heroes once they are maxed, just to activate that chance for the shell shock. And we can see on my Ember that I have indeed given her +1. I used to have more emblems on her, but I have redistributed them. I wanted to put some on some other heroes, and I've got some excess, so I might give Ember some more as well. So in terms of her emblem path, I would recommend going the attack path just to give her additional damage output. You could make an argument to go defense and HP to increase her survival to be a minion destructor, but I'd go the attack route. So to showcase both of those paths, if we were to go the attack path, we are picking up the nodes with attack on them. Fortunately, there's no points where we have to choose between two paths with attack, so we just go attack at every branch, and that's what it would look like in the end of things. I wouldn't go any further than 18 because, as I said, the 19th node is speed, there's no benefit to it, and the healing node is worthless, and then 20 is a lot of emblems for a slight attack improvement. So that's the path. That is an attacking path. If we were to reset it and go the defense path, it's just the inverse. Ultimately, we are picking up each of the sides with defense and HP. You can stop therefore at +18, the 19th, +17, the 18th node is attack, but that is the defense path instead. So as I said, it's literally just the opposite path to the attacking one on the Demolitions class. So feel free to pause and review either of those if you wish, but otherwise, let's head back and we can take a look at the rest of her special skills. So her special skills is titled Scorch the World, and at level 10 skill and 37 speed, it will deal 305% damage to the target, with minor damage being dealt to nearby enemies. It will destroy all minions from the target enemies, and then apply a blaze ailment to the main target, who receives 368 damage over 2 turns. If that targeted enemy dies while the blaze ailment is active, the nearby enemies will receive blaze instead, or as well, for 2 turns also. And in addition to all of that, it will do one of the coolest animations in the game. So yeah, biased opinion, of course, in my opinion. So before we go any further into breaking apart this special skill, I will address and explain the phrase minor damage. So minor damage is just half the percentage listed in their special skill. So in the case of Ember, she has 305% damage which is being dealt to the main target, and half of that, 152.5%, is dealt to the 2 nearby enemies. So because of how the damage calculation actually runs, the nearby enemies end up taking roughly 42% of the calculated damage done to the main target. So because of this substantial decay or drop-off, I tend to classify and consider minor damage as being splash damage, and it's sort of just like a bonus little thing. So I compare these minor damage or splash damage heroes with snipers, because ultimately the bulk of their damage is directed predominantly against a single hero, and it drops off greatly on the nearby enemies. So let's break that down a little bit, starting with that damage component. So as always, I compare heroes that do damage based on their attack power. It is simpler and removes the variability of the damage calculation, and is ultimately analogous to their final damage output anyway. More attack power means more damage output. So attack power is just their attack stat, 715, multiplied by the percentage in their special skill, which in the case of Ember is 305%, and we can see that her attack power comes out at 2,181. If we normalize that against the 12 tiles to charge her speed, we come out with an attack power per tile of 182, which is not great in the end of it. It is number 14 of the available 17 yellow snipers in the game. The only ones that are worse are Nutmeg and Yolani, who are just terrible hitters with their tile-based damage. And then we've also got Judge, who's also not a great hitter. So Ember's damage, if we removed the per tile basis, it's not so bad. It does move up a couple slots in the ratings, because she does have a slightly increased attack stat and okay damage, but because of her speed, it does push her a ways down this list. There are obviously, as I said, those ones below her. Above her, you've got ones like Topaz, Variant Stinger coming up in 390s worth of attack power per tile, Dr. Scorpion 252, Digimon at 263, Hatchet at 251, Reaper 210. So there's a lot of yellow snipers in the game. There's 17 of them. And of those, as I said, Ember comes in at 14, which is, it's not great in the end of things. However, the damage that she deals is inflated by the fact that she's got the splash damage. So she's doing roughly half or a little bit under half of that to the nearby enemies, as well as the fact that it has the minion destruction as well, which effectively counts as bonus damage, or it's damage that you don't have to do elsewhere. And there's the blaze element as well. So even though her direct damage is reduced or lower compared to some other snipers, she does have damage enhancing, or effectively more damage through the rest of her special skill. So let's take a look at some of those things. So starting with the minion destruction. So her skill will destroy all minions from target enemies. So it does exactly what it says, right? Any minions that are on the target and nearby enemies are immediately removed. Boom, gone. It doesn't matter how many minions are in play. It doesn't matter what their health is. They are just removed. They're gone. It does notably occur after the direct damage, so because skills execute in the order they are written, it will deal the damage first and then remove the minions. So it does mean that if you're targeting a hero that has minions, that direct damage is somewhat wasted because it applies to the minion, if there is one, before it applies to the enemy hero's health. If it was, the better situation would be if it was remove minions first, then deals damage second. That would be the better way, and then her direct damage isn't wasted by hitting a minion that's going to be removed anyway. Her charge speed being so slow does mean that, generally speaking, if there is a minion maker on the enemy team, they will have probably fired by the time she's casting, so you are going to be removing those minions as they create. And there is also worth mentioning as well that there's not many minion removers or destroyers in the game at all. In total, at the moment, there are 5. You've obviously got Ember as one of them. Wei Sheng is the original. He was the first minion destroyer added to the game. And then after that, you had Ramhorn, Royarden, and more recently, Inferno added. So there's only 5 of them. And as I mentioned, at the time of Ember's release back in 2021, there was only one other minion destroyer, which was Wei Sheng. I will point out as well, actually, there was a 6th one in the game, which was Mare Vanaya. Now, you might not actually know this, but on her original release, Mare Vanaya actually was a single target insanity hero and an AoE 3 minion destroyer, but they changed her during a balance update in December 2021, and they removed the minion destruction part of her skill, which it actually did make her a better hero, but was sad to see the minion destruction go at the time, because there were only 3 of them at that point in time. So anyway, there is only a couple of them in the game. So it does give her a niche application, but a very specific application nonetheless, which there's not many options of. The final part of her skill is the Blaze ailment. So the target receives 368 damage over 2 turns. If the target dies while this effect is active, nearby enemies receive the Blaze ailment for 2 turns as well. So Blaze is effectively a souped up version of the Burn. It still operates as a DOT ailment, but it is able to stack with other DOTs and is actually an enhanced version. So standard Burn is normally it's about 103 HP per turn. Blaze is, by comparison, 184 HP per turn. So yes, the duration is shorter. We're only running for 2 turns compared to the standard 3 turns of a burn ailment, but the tick is much greater, so the total damage is much greater in the end as well. The other really cool thing about Blaze is the propagation effect. So if someone with Blaze dies while the Blaze ailment is still active, it will apply that same effect to the nearby enemies on either side of them. So it will if that happens and someone already has Blaze, it will refresh the duration as well. So you can effectively chain it through a large number of the team if you can time the kills enough. So 2 things to note with this. As with all DOT effects, it is very much reliant on the special skill level. So at not 10 out of 10 skill, it drops off by 16 DOT per level. So at 6 out of 10, which is when you don't have to commit any 5-star skill books, the Blaze element is only 294 over 2 turns, or 147 per turn. Still greater than the burn damage tick, but it has dropped off a lot in its total damage. The other thing that is worth mentioning is that she is only hitting the target enemy. So even though the rest of her effects are target and nearby, the Blaze element is only on the main target of her damage. And that target does also have to survive the direct damage for the Blaze element to apply. So overall, in spite of Ember's less than ideal speed, I am actually a fair bit of an Ember fan. I will freely admit she is not one of the greatest heroes going around. Her direct damage, when you factor in the speed, it is poor. Her speed does hurt her a lot, but if you can move past the speed, even considering the speed, her damage when you combine it with the minion destruction and the Blaze ailment, it is a total increase towards her effective damage output by a considerable margin. Like if you look at some of the minions that are in the game, you can have 200, 300, 400 HP minions going around, and Ember will just wipe all of those minions out of existence straight up. So the minion destruction, as I said, it's very powerful. It does make her much more specific in an application. It's only going to be valuable against minion generating heroes. But fortunately, we are actually starting to see more minion heroes on defense teams. You've got ones like Pulse, and you've also got heroes like Venus that are starting to appear a bit more often. Whereas previously, most of the time, it was just heroes like Nima was probably the most prevalent one. So we are seeing a little bit more of an application for these minion destroying heroes. If you can get past the slow speed, which I know a lot of players do struggle with, I personally don't struggle with it as much. I sort of take a bit more of a holistic look at heroes, but I understand why people look at speed and put a lot of emphasis on it. But if you can move past the speed, Ember is actually a really good hero in the right situation. So against minion makers, she is an absolute weapon. Really good option to use in those situations. In other situations, when there's not minions on the other team, she does obviously drop off a lot. You know, you've got a single target Blaze, and you've also got middling damage, but I like her. So overall, for war and raid, for her grading in the war and raid attack situations, I'm going to give her a B grade. People probably will disagree with this, but I mean, it is my opinion, and my opinion is what I'm grading on. So I'm going to give her a B grade. As I said, there is a lot of usability to her, and you can actually get a lot out of her if you're willing to put the effort into her. For War Machines, I'm going to drop her down to a C grade. She's not a War Machine hero, nor for events is she much of a hero, so I'm going to give her a C grade there too. So C grade for War Machines and a C grade for eventing. On defense, speed is a really limiting factor, and her non-defensive stats also don't help her, so I'm only going to give her a C+ here. Probably best at the flank position to give her a little bit of shelter, but also allow her to charge in time to be useful there. In the tournament settings, for Bloody Battles, I'm going to give her a B+ on attack and a B- on defense. She does have a DOT ailment, and she does counter minions, which are the only forms of pseudo-healing that you can get in the Bloody Battle, because armor, revival, and healing are removed, but minion makers are still permitted. So she does counter the minion makers in that Bloody Battle tournament setting. In the buff boosters, I'm going to keep her at a B grade on attack and a C+ on defense. She's not really doing too much for the for buff boosters, so no real change there. And finally, on charged attack tournament, her speed is massively improved, going from 37 up to 65. So I will increase her grading here. I'm going to give her an A- for charged tournament attack and a B grade for charged tournament defense. So overall, that comes out as being a B- for her overall attack grade and a B- for her overall defense grade. And that concludes the content that I have for this review of Ember. As always, these are just my personal thoughts and opinions on these heroes. I do love hearing your thoughts and feedback, so feel free to jump down to the comments section and leave me a note. I try to read and respond as much as I can. If you found this useful and helpful, this topic, please like the channel, like the video, subscribe to the channel, but most importantly, share this content around, because ultimately, if this sort of thing is useful for yourself, it's also going to be useful to the people you play with as well. Thank you once again for tuning in and joining me. I do hope I will see you again soon, but until then, good luck, stay safe, and happy gaming. Cheers, bye!